Welcome to Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network. I'm your host, Nick Capozzi, and it's Monday, so we got a lot to talk about. Now, usually we have head football editor from Razzball.com, Jay Wrong, on Mondays, but we have a very special guest today. Not only is he one of the 5 members of the Razzball Radio Ring of Honor, not only is he from the Fantasy Sports Network, not only is he from Roto Experts, but he is officially the personal fantasy advisor to the Dos Equis guy. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Cardano. Mike, how are you?
You know, I kind of feel like I'm on the wedding B-list invitation.
What are you talking about?
You know, it's a kind of last-minute fill-in thing.
You're sitting like right next to the head table, man.
How was your weekend?
You know what? It was pretty good. You know where I'm supposed to be right now, Mike?
Where's that?
Las Vegas. I was actually in Las Vegas this weekend because we did the grand prize. Ron Vacker from San Diego came to the San Diego tour stop. He won the trip. So myself and the guys from Sports Vault, Matt and Carl, took him to Vegas. And we were having a great time. And I'm still technically supposed to be there, but I'm not. Because I've been on the road about 45 days this year doing shows on the road. Never had a problem. One time I forget the battery chargers when I'm in Vegas. So I had to haul through the desert yesterday to get back to the studio just to do a fantasy football show. Because it's Monday, big day.
Oh, that's good. You made me feel important. I'm happy now.
You're up, Mike. You are one of the 5 members on the Ring of Honor. I mean, we've been doing this show for a couple of years. There's 5 members on the Ring of Honor. You're one of them, Mike.
All right. Here we
and
go.
Alphabetically, you're first. So it was a great day in football yesterday. And that's what I love about the NFL. There's very few bad weeks, but we've had a couple really good weeks. But the one thing that frustrates me, if there's a sport that shouldn't have ties, it's football. Are you with me?
Yeah. Play all that way. People get hurt, giving up their careers and livelihoods for this stuff.
Yeah.
All the time.
Speaking of giving up careers, I think Mike Nugent did that yesterday for the Cincinnati Bengals, shanking a 36-yard field goal, which could have won it for the Bengals. And it's been
appropriate. Ex-Jet player. It's appropriate.
We're going to get to the Jets in a bit because I got to talk to you about Jason Morrow. You called that one. It was actually a very exciting game. So we were actually in the sports book at Planet Hollywood in Las Vegas. We had a great time. And this was a very exciting game. Cam Newton, top scoring fantasy player yesterday, and it wasn't close. Well, okay, it was a little close. T.Y. Hilton had a really good day on Thursday. Goes 29 for 46, 284 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception, but runs for 107 yards and a touchdown. This is the Cam Newton we all thought we were going to see. Now, here's the thing. The easy question here, Mike, is can he keep it up? The short answer, I think, and I'm curious to see if you disagree with me, is no. And the only reason is because the supporting cast, other than Kelvin Benjamin and Greg Olsen, is terrible. If there is a team, if there is a front office that has made a huge mistake the last couple of years, it's Carolina not getting another running back into that mix. It's been ugly, but boy, was Cam good yesterday.
Yeah, to me, all these guys that can use their legs are better NFL quarterbacks than they are fantasy quarterbacks. Russell Wilson, to me, is the prime example. You saw what happened yesterday. The offense is just not designed that way, right? And the same thing with Cam Newton. The offense is just not designed for him to fade back and throw the ball 50 times a game. So, opportunity breeds success. Opportunities generally aren't there that many times. Yesterday, he threw 46 pass attempts. That's much more than normal. They took off and ran a couple of times. So you're going to get these days with these running quarterbacks. They'll happen, but to count on them over the long haul, any day that you have him in that you might need him might be the day that doesn't happen.
Absolutely. Gio Bernard had a great day, 18 for 137 and a touchdown on the ground, caught 4 passes left, but came back. People panicked a little bit. Nice touchdown dance, by the way, by Jeremy Hill. I don't know if you saw that. He did the old school Equis shuffle. That was fantastic. But the big story on the Cincinnati side was Mohamed Sanu going 11 for 120 and a touchdown. A lot of people thought he'd have a pretty good day. I started him everywhere. I have him and Michael Floyd on every team, and because I was worried about Palmer coming back, I put Sanu in there. He responded. I don't want to say can he keep it up, but is this another viable weapon that can help Cincinnati hopefully recover after this messy 8-game stretch?
Yeah, to me, he is. And listen, I've been on him for a while. I'm in the minority there. Anytime his name comes up, people say, yeah, but he can't keep it up. Marvin Jones is coming back, or A.J. Green is coming back. To me, he is so ingrained into that offense at this point and he's been successful, that I think he's going to be fantasy relevant and a third option for that team, even if Marvin Jones and A.J. Green are both on the field. I think he's here to stay. I don't think he's somebody that you want to fade or sell high on. I think as the year goes on, he's proven now that they can depend on him when their other guys are out. So I think you ride him while it's hot. And I would actually look to trade for him if there are people that think he can't keep it up.
I'm with you. Legit talent. I like Sanu a lot. I picked him up everywhere. Of course, Chris Heil from Project Roto on the tour told us this year, I've said this a few times, but that he was actually going to out-touchdown A.J. Green. Now, injury might skew that a little bit, but still. Okay, the Green Bay-Miami game was very exciting. You want to see excitement? Go to Vegas, where in a span of 30 seconds, both Denver and Green Bay covers in a sports book. It was unbelievable. I think, though, the key takeaway for me, Devontae Adams, been talking about him for a few weeks, goes 6 for 77. What I liked about him, two things. One, he had two really nice moves after the catch. Very impressive how he did that. But also, Aaron Rodgers had that fake spike. In the house that Dan Marino built, did the fake spike Dan Marino with about 15 seconds left to beat Cortland Finnegan. And Adams, the rookie, picked up on it, managed to get the first down, allowed Green Bay to win that game. Do you like Adams going forward?
I do, but he's got so many weapons over there that the ball, it's not as bad as the Saints options, where you never can tell on any one day who's going to be the heavily targeted guy. To me, the only must-own guy there is obviously Jordy Nelson. And the most impressive thing about that game to me and everything was on the final touchdown pass. He didn't even buckle his chin strap, if you noticed. He had his chin strap when he threw the ball. He was just casual about it. But yeah. So I like him, but he's kind of down on the food chain for me.
Okay, fair enough. We're going to get to some more stuff, but I want to say a very happy Thanksgiving to all our Canadian viewers and listeners. Mike, of course, in mid-New Jersey there with the nice foliage behind him. We didn't even set that up. We're all about visuals on this show. This is Razzball Radio on Fantasy Sports Network. I'm Nick Capozzi. He's Mike Cardano. We'll be back with more right after this. Welcome back to Razzball Radio on Fantasy Sports Network. Nick Capozzi, Mike Cardano, the personal, I'm going to say valet of the Dos Equis guy. That must be cool. That is a guy I would want to hang out with. Another guy I'd like to hang out with, just because I get close to Giselle, is Tom Brady. Now, yesterday, it was actually a better game than the score indicated. Buffalo's defense played really tough. They were amped up with Terry Pacula taking over as owner of the Buffalo Bills. It's great for the region, but Brady dissects them with 4 touchdowns. No running game to speak of. Key takeaway for me on the Saints, though, the Patriots, was Gronkowski went 7 for 94, but he played 57 of 74 snaps, which is pretty much a full game that you'd expect of him. That was really exciting for me to see. Do you think Gronk is going to now be, kind of a full-time starter rest of the year?
Yeah, I do. Listen, anything can happen, but I think he showed that he's healthy now at the moment. So he's a must-have. And in terms of the rest of the people rest of the players on the Patriots, they are so game plan dependent. Belichick does such a great job with that, and it can be anybody at any time. It could be Brandon LaFell. It could be anybody. It's game plan dependent, so you really don't know what you're going to get from anybody else there, really. Gronk, to me, is the only must-have there on that entire offense. I thought Shane Vereen was going to be in PPR leagues coming into the season.
So did I.
For whatever reason, it's not working out that way.
All right, if you're looking for some waiver wire gold, we'll talk more about this tomorrow with T-Hole. Brandon LaFell goes 4 for 97, but with 2 touchdowns. And that's 2 games in a row that he's been looking for him. So who knows? Maybe there's they always thought LaFell had talents in Carolina. He just never put it together. So maybe in this system there's an opportunity. Speaking of not putting it together, Big Ben, 2 weeks in a row, he has looked completely out of sync. I know Marcus Wheaton was actually taking some of the blame postgame. But Big Ben, I don't know if he's hiding an injury. I don't know what's going on there. I've been saying for a couple weeks they need more weapons. He's got to get the ball to someone other than Antonio Brown. What's wrong with Ben?
I don't know. That entire team is having problems. They're getting beat up. They don't look good at all. Wheaton had the targets yesterday.
Yes, he did.
I think he was thrown to 10 or 11 times. But it just didn't, and that's more on Ben than anything else. If you're throwing to him, he's open. So then you got to get the ball to him. So I think Wheaton is somebody you still want to own because he's getting targets. And again, opportunity breeds success. Not in yesterday's case, but it's probably more of an anomaly. I can't put my finger on it. I can't write off Ben Roethlisberger yet. He's got too much of a track record, but there's something not right there.
Yeah, I'm blaming Todd Haley. That's my story. But you know who I'm not blaming is Mike Pettin, head coach of the Cleveland Browns. They look absolutely legitimate, and when you can win with
Should be 5-2.
Yeah,
Should be.
you're right. And when you can win with your starting quarterback only making 8 completions, that's really impressive. Ben Tate goes for 78 yards and a couple touchdowns till he gets injured. Interesting thing for me, though, there is Alex Mack, who is a rock on that offensive line. Gets hurt, looks like a broken leg, maybe some knee damage too. So that's bad news. But Cleveland, start all your Browns. You've got to. Not that you have a ton of them, but I like that team. They're a fun team to watch. All right, I don't really want to talk about the Jacksonville-Tennessee game, although I won some money on it in Vegas. Thank you, Tennessee. Storm Johnson, a lot of talk about him. Goes 10 for 21 and a touchdown. No Gerhardt with the foot injury. A lot of hype about him this week, but I think the interesting thing from a Jacksonville perspective is Cecil Shorts goes 10 for 103. So when he's healthy, he's still the number one guy there, and he's only owned in about 38% of leagues. Another guy you want to target this week. On the Tennessee side, the only thing I saw that was interesting is that they're still not very good. Kendall Wright goes 1 for 6. At least Sankey got some touches, goes 18 for 61. Is he flex startable now that they're actually giving him the ball?
I don't like him. I just don't like him. People, without Sean Green there, he's going to get the ball. So he should have the opportunities. I don't like that offense. I'm not a big fan. I just think there are other places to go. I can't argue with somebody's logic. If somebody wants to use him for a flex, he should get the opportunities, and it should result in something. But I'm just not a big fan.
Somewhere in the world yesterday, I'm sure, probably in a QB league, someone started Joe Flacco, and they were rewarded. The Ravens just dismantling the Buccaneers. I thought the Bucs would have been better. With Lovie Smith there, I thought that defense would have played better, but obviously not this week. Steve Smith, 5 for 110 and a touchdown. Torrey Smith makes an appearance. Only 4 catches, 2 touchdowns. They were both in the first quarter. Not much to talk about there other than Forsett still getting the reps, 14 for 111. Pierce getting some burn too, 15 for 32, got the touchdown. No Talaferio. On the Tampa Bay side, it's ugly. The only thing that's slightly interesting to me is that Austin Seferian-Jackson's getting a little bit more work. 4 catches for 58 yards. Not sexy, but I mean, there's not much else to talk about on Tampa Bay there, Mike. But let's talk about your Jets.
Uh-oh.
Geno Smith didn't lose that game until the last couple of minutes. Played pretty good.
He's just trying to make a play at that point.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But talk to me about Jason Morrow, because he goes 10 for 68 and a touchdown. He's the guy you talked about in the preseason. This guy's available everywhere. You going and grabbing him? Do you think that he's a guy who's going to get 6, 7, 8, 9 targets every week?
Listen, I do, mostly because, he's a spectacular athlete. If you followed his career in college, he's played one for his hands are a little questionable. He dropped some easy ones. But they simply don't have that many options to throw the ball in New York. There's not many places you can throw it. You can throw it to Eric Decker, or you can throw it to Jason Morrow.
Or the defense.
You can throw it to Curley a couple of times, but they'll be very short and there are no other options. So just by default, he's going to get targets. So to me, hopefully some more of them start coming in the red zone, but the Jets have to get into the red zone in order to have red zone targets, right? So listen, he had the most targets and the most catches of any tight end in the game yesterday. I'm not suggesting that's going to happen every week, but he's going to be heavily targeted every week because they only really have 2 options to throw the ball to. And if they're going to be behind, they're going to have to throw the ball. The team doesn't have to do well for these guys in fantasy to succeed. But by the time this year ends, he's going to be a viable tight end too. There's no question in my mind.
All right, real quick. Ronnie Hillman yesterday goes 24 for 110, also caught 3 passes. But he only was able to really move the ball when they moved to a 2 tight end set, which is not something you're going to see very often from Denver. Real quick, just about 10 seconds here. You buying Hillman?
If he's in there, the running back that's in there, they're going to, Manning's going to audible to a run at certain points. He's going to get some red zone touches as well. I don't see who's ever the number one running back at the time. It doesn't matter who it is. If he's in Denver, he's rosterable.
All right, there you go. Mike Cardano, at Mike Cardano on Twitter, personal valet to Dos Equis guy. I'm Nick Capozzi. We'll be right back. Razzball Radio, Fantasy Sports Network. Welcome back, Razzball Radio Fantasy Sports Network. I'm joined by Mike Cardano of Roto Experts and the Fantasy Sports Network. Detroit and the Vikings. So last week, I was on the air with Nando DeFino, of course, the Roto Experts Fantasy Funhouse, every day, 10 to noon on SiriusXM Fantasy. And we had a little bit of debate about Matt Asiata. And I was saying McKinnon's the guy you want. Now, I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit here, because yesterday, even though Minnesota didn't play very well, McKinnon goes 11 for 40, 6 catches for 42 yards. But Matt Asiata, 2 for -5. This guy, you can't start him right now, can you?
Well, you know what it is? That McKinnon is going to get most of the touches between the 20s because he's the most explosive. He can catch the ball, so he'll be valuable in PPR. The problem with owning McKinnon is if they get down inside the 5, they're probably going to give it to Asiata. He doesn't fumble, and he's proven he can go for yards in a cloud of dust most of the time. He got very little touches yesterday. So if they get in there, he's likely to steal the touchdown. So McKinnon's touchdowns are most likely going to come from longer range if they happen. He'll put up more yards per game. He'll do better in PPR. He'll get receptions. But if there's 2 touchdowns to be had inside the 3-yard line, Asiata's probably going to be the guy. Do you think Minnesota's going to be in those positions often enough is really what you have to guess. So he probably is rosterable.
Big shocker of the day. Dallas goes in to Seattle and beats the Seahawks. Oh, my goodness. I feel bad for Scott Engel, the king, today. He must be absolutely torn up inside. But here's what's interesting. So DeMarco Murray goes 29 for 115, 6 catches for 31 yards, 159 rushing attempts this year. That's 43 more than anybody else. Now, DeMarco Murray has an injury history. So you know who I'm picking up this week everywhere? Joseph Randle, only 2% owned. I got to love what Murray's doing, but he can't keep it up and stay healthy. It's just too much.
I don't know. Sometimes these guys, they just have a year. So I think you got to ride him while it's hot. Funny thing about Seattle and the stigma and the notion that they can't be beaten at home, they've now lost 2 of their last 5 home games.
Yes, they have.
So it's not all what it's cracked up to be. Now there's a lot of tape on them, on what you do against them. Teams are starting to hang around in games against them. Now, they know how to win. Russell Wilson is a great quarterback to have manage your team. Even last week against the Redskins were in the game. They had an opportunity to win that game. So I'm not suggesting that Seattle's not a playoff team or anything like that, but they're not blowing out teams like they did last year. It's a totally different team. You see teams are now throwing at Richard Sherman. It's not that Des Bryant didn't get any touches yesterday. They've come back to the pack a little bit. Once you get tape on a team, people know how to game plan against it, and then it's a copycat league. Everybody's going to try to do the same thing.
Yep.
So it's going to be a struggle for Seattle and the people you were able to depend on going forward. Look at Percy Harvin yesterday. I think he had negative yards in rushing or passing, one of them. He had almost negative yards total. So it's not so much that people are saying, oh, they're not using him right. Everybody's looking for it. Everybody's waiting for the Jets sweep now. It's not going to come as a surprise to anybody. So I'd be very surprised if the jet sweep is an effective play for them going forward for the rest of the year.
I'm with you, but I will say this. For them to get back on track, they've got to get the ball in Marshawn Lynch's hands and just run the ball. He only got 10 carries for 61 yards. Buy low candidate as far as I'm concerned, Marshawn Lynch. Let's talk about the New York Giants and Philadelphia Eagles. First shutout for the Eagles in 18 years. Big takeaway for me, shady. LaShawn McCoy is back. 22 rushing attempts, 149 yards. You comfortable starting him now? Because it was a roller coaster.
Yeah, reports of his fantasy death have been greatly exaggerated here. I would like to see more from him in the passing game, but I have to be honest, I'm not so sure that we're going to see that going forward that much consistently. There was an argument that Darren Sproles was going to get many of the targets, the passes out of the backfield, but that really doesn't hold water. Sproles didn't have any targets last night or any catches. McCoy had 2, and he caught them both. The fact is that Andy Reid simply used the screen game a lot more, and he still does today. It's part of the way he calls a game than Chip Kelly does. So I don't think you're ever going to see those type of reception yards or opportunities from McCoy that we did previously. There'll be few, but not like they used to. But to have seen him run between the 20s like he did last night, there should be no questions about his health.
Yeah.
People can stop complaining about the line and so on and so forth. And what about the defensive line last night? The Giants had no opportunity to do anything. You can't blame any of the receivers. He faded back to pass, and they were all over him. This credit goes to the defensive line last night for the Eagles. The game, there was no contest.
All right, just for the sake of time, we're not going to break down the AZ Washington game, but I will say that Carson Palmer looked okay when he was back. But let's talk San Diego and Oakland. Andre Holmes coming out party, 4 for 121 and 2 touchdowns. Derek Carr throws 4 TDs, and even McFadden, 40% owned, was useful, 14 for 80. Is there some fantasy relevance now with Sperano in here?
I think so. Listen, he likes to run the ball. You saw yesterday McFadden, 14 rushes, 80 yards. I don't know if he's able to stay healthy or not, but who's ever really getting the touches there in the backfield, there's got to be some fantasy relevance. And on San Diego's side, I actually think the big thing there is Brandon Oliver. You know,
Yep.
he's clearly not a one-hit wonder that he played against the Jets. You know, he's a Darren Sproles doppelganger. But, you know, although he can catch and run like Sproles, he's a smidge bigger, and he runs hard and he breaks tackles. He's not just trying to scat around, you know. So I think you've got something there. Maybe too late to pick him up. I don't know where he is now, but he's somewhere, somebody that you need to have.
All right, Mike, we got to wrap this up. I will just say in the Chicago-Atlanta game, you cannot start any Atlanta Falcons whose first name isn't Julio. What a mess. But Matt Forte, big game, 27 touches, 157 yards, 2 touchdowns. Okay, Mike, tomorrow I'm going to be talking with T-Hole about some of the waiver wire pickups. I think there's a lot of value on the wire this week. I think this is a very good week to spend some money on the waiver wire. But as always, Mike, it's a pleasure. And you are not on the B list of wedding guests. Again, you're one of the 5 inductees into the Razzball Radio Ring of Honor. Mike Cardano, follow him on Twitter, at Mike Cardano, the personal executive assistant, valet, whatever you want to call him, of the Dos Equis guy. Must be cool hanging out with him, isn't it, Mike?
It's a ladies thing. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Mike Cardano of Roto Experts and the Fantasy Sports Network, and now, really, truly, the personal valet of the Dos Equis guy. Mike, thanks very much for joining us today, my man. We will talk soon. We'll be back tomorrow. Razzball Radio, Fantasy Sports Network.